Hi, friends. I'm Scott Giles, a certified hypno coach and a diplomate of the National Guild of Hypnotists. Today, I want to talk about how to talk to yourself. Now, we all maintain an inner dialogue. Martin Seligman, in his book Learned Helplessness, talked about a person's explanatory style. And he argued that some people have an explanatory style that's intrinsically optimistic, others that have a explanatory style that's intrinsically pessimistic, and he even did research about medical outcomes depending upon a person's explanatory style. Fascinating book. His point with the explanatory style is that as we go through life, we're constantly maintaining an interior dialogue silently in our heads, trying to explain the world to ourselves, trying to help our experience make sense. Well, we all do this. I was speaking some years ago to a meeting of psychiatrists in Chicago, and I said this, and they said, "Oh, talk to yourself? We don't talk to ourselves. Do you talk to yourself, Dr. Giles? Well, maybe you need some pills, I think they were kidding. There are some rules, though, that I found over the years that are very helpful in how to talk to yourself most effectively to produce emotional regulation, behavioral change. The late Jerry Kine of Omni Hypnosis Training Center used to talk about something he called Parsing. Now, that's actually a compression of a term. I don't know where he got that word Parsing, but out of the Ericksonian tradition and stuff, there's a phrase, false parsing. And what it means is that the subconscious mind does not handle negation well. If you say something internally that contains a negation, very often your subconscious mind will drop out the negation and you hear the statement without it. So if you were to say something like, "Well, I hope I don't have cancer," what the subconscious mind could hear is, "I hope I have cancer." Now, I don't think this happens uniformly. Jerry used to say that always the case, but he was given sometimes to overstatement. But I think often the subconscious mind drops negation. And so therefore, using negation in your self-talk implies a risk. A person will say, "Well, I want to meet someone who isn't a real loser." And what the subconscious mind hears is, "I want to meet someone who's a loser." And if the subconscious process has already accepted some principles about all men or all women are losers, that's going to get reinforced. People will say, "I don't want to be poor." And what the subconscious mind hears is, "I want to be poor." Instead of talking to yourself about what you don't want, it's important to talk to yourself about what you do want. And once you get this, the difference is as clear as night and day. And you can train yourself to speak to your subconscious mind in a positive fashion. I want to be healthy and well. Much better than I don't want to have cancer. I want to meet honorable and affectionate people. Much better than I don't want to be a loser. I want to be financially comfortable. Much better than I don't want to be poor. Once you get this, you talk about what you do want, not about what you're afraid might happen or what you don't want. And I usually find it only takes a week or so before you'll notice a shift in your baseline mood. And this is really important because one of the foundational work of my work with cancer patients is teaching them internal habits of emotional regulation so that they change their baseline emotional state. When you do that, you are changing your body's biochemistry because feelings, in addition to everything else they are biochemical states in the body. When you feel a certain way, especially long term, you are putting chemicals into your body from the ultimate pharmacy of your brain that are there just as surely as if you had taken a syringe and injected them. And some of these chemicals build physical resilience and some inhibit it, which is why I often say that your mind can be your healer or your slayer. So the first thing to do as you talk to yourself is get the negation out of there. It's risky. Talk to yourself in positive terms, what you do want, not what you don't. The second piece of this has to do with compassion, self-compassion. One of the things that I have noticed over the years, well, I'll phrase this a little bit differently. In the psychological system called transactional analysis, all of us are believed to have a part of our mind called the not okay adapted child. What this means is as we grow as young children, we get socialized. People reinforce some of our behaviors and discipline other behaviors. We don't just do what's natural. I mean, it's natural to continue to defecate in our pants, but we get trained not to do that because from the socialization process. So inside of us, we all have this part that says, I'm not okay. What I want to do naturally isn't acceptable to others. And so we begin a process of self-criticism that begins in early childhood and continues throughout our life. Because of that, most of us don't treat ourselves very well. We don't talk to ourselves well. When I ask clients to describe their internal dialogue, typically they talk to themselves in a way that if they had talked to anyone else that way, they wouldn't have any friends at all. They speak to themselves with zero empathy, zero compassion, zero tolerance, zero forgiveness. It's just one unending critique. That's going to bring anyone down. Part of the techniques I use here at my hypno-coaching practice in Wheaton come from the Heart Math Institute in Boulder, California. Heart Math does some of the best research, in my opinion, in mind-body interactions, and the research is really well done. They have a technique they call the compassion soak. I often weave it into my hypnotic and coaching work. Given that we all have this not okay child inside of us, it's too big a task to turn that off totally. But anyone can sit down or take some time, 5-10 minutes, and just decide for the next 5 minutes, I'm going to turn off that not okay voice. And I'm just going to talk to myself about myself in terms that are positive. I'm going to look at myself through soft eyes. I'm going to feel about myself with a soft heart. And for that time, we reverse some of the body's biochemistry. We begin to build new neurological connections that are more compassionate. And we allow ourselves to feel good, take the stress out of the system. So I often do a compassion soak when I go for a walk. You got to do something when you're walking, and I'll often do that as a compassion soak for the half hour or hour I'm out there walking. The martial art I practice these days is Dan Tao, and it has a slow set that's a little bit like Qigong. And that set ends with what's called standing meditation, or Zazu Song. And when I'm standing there in that standing meditation pose, I'll often do a compassion soak for the 5-10 minutes I'm holding that posture. When I go to bed, especially if having trouble sleeping, turn off the inner voice or reframe the inner voice and just soak in compassion. Anyone can do this for 5 minutes. And if 5 minutes is too hard, do it for 2. But get the experience of speaking to yourself gently. And when that's over, you could go back to giving yourself a hard time, but you'll still find the more regularly you practice a compassion soak, the better and better and better you will do. So that's how to talk to yourself. Get the negation out of there. It's risky. Understand that we all have, as part of our socialization, this not okay childlike part, and that we can set it aside for a short period of time and just soak in self-compassion. It's good for us. It does all kinds of good things to our body and to our soul. Thank you very much for your attention and time. I'll be back next Saturday, 2:30 Central Time, with another talk. And in that particular talk, I'm going to focus on a kind of goal setting, how to set spiritual and emotional goals for yourself. I hope you'll join me. Take care, and God bless.